All right, Monochrome Memoirs, episode 6.
Wow.
Already?
Wow. We're getting there.
I know, this is good. I'm having
Yeah.
a lot of fun with this stuff.
This is super fun.
Well, we're getting a lot of really good feedback from everybody on YouTube and everybody who's been listening. And it just feels good to be able to put out actionable information that's actually helping people.
Yeah, I love being able to help others. It's really great.
Definitely. So
Super
today is going to be a really, really good episode for all you people out there who are into photography. Anybody out there interested in building a brand? Anybody out there interested in getting into weddings? I mean, this guy is one of our inspirations.
For sure. Oh, yeah. I've been following Taylor forever since
All right, you just dropped the name before I did that.
Sorry. But yes, I have been a huge inspiration, watched a lot of his YouTube and really
Learned a lot.
Yeah, learned a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So without further ado, guys, we have Taylor Jackson on the podcast today. Taylor, what's up, man?
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is awesome.
We're so excited.
Yeah,
We are
excited, it's really cool to know that you guys actually discovered my content. I feel like I've made so much of it, and I know that people watch it from time to time, but I never really have direct feedback. So,
I'm a fangirl. So
well, I appreciate it.
I know your life. I'm like, oh, what we're talking about you earlier, and we're both like, oh yeah, he does this. Okay, yeah, this is how he got into it. Oh, all right, this is
I was like, honey, did you see the thing with the Mexican Coke?
Yeah, that was weird. It worked out though. It was.
Dude, it was awesome. It's so funny. I went to the store today to try and find some to bring it on the podcast.
That would have been amazing.
I know.
Yeah, it was funny. We literally went for lunch. And I guess this is kind of how all accidents happen with photography is we went for lunch. And for those that don't know, we basically did a portrait video on YouTube with just a Mexican Coke kind of as a prop. And yeah, we were at lunch and then we left and Miguel still had one with him because he bought two because he's that addicted and that passionate about Mexican Coke. And he was carrying it around and we're like, well, it's in every shot. So we might as well use it for a thing.
Yeah,
And
I
it
love
ended
it.
up being good. So yeah.
Man, it was so funny how you're shooting through that and the leaf, and then the shot came out sick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it worked out okay.
Absolutely.
The real question is though, how is the Coke? Is it it's real sugar, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it? Oh, cool.
It is pretty good. It's
Okay.
It's one of my we go to Mexico fairly often for weddings, or my wife Lindsay and I got married there as well, so we went there for that, and we went there to scout the venue, and we went there after again with a bunch of our guests. So I am definitely a passionate person when it comes to Mexican soft drinks in general.
Yeah.
I do find them superior to Canadian, and I would also say U.S. Soft drinks. But
100%, man. We're on that board too. They use the natural all natural cane sugar.
Yeah, cane sugar, which is so good. And touching on that, Lindsay, your wife, is also awesome.
Oh yeah, she's a fangirl. Lindsay.
Yeah, I love Lindsay. I follow her, a lot of her stuff. She's so sweet and so pretty. I love her.
I do too.
Well, it's cool to see her progression because when that's actually, I mean, that's a good thing to kind of get into because Sarah and I, we shoot together, and I had been shooting for a long time before, Sarah and I met. And then once we kind of hooked up and figured out we wanted to do weddings, I kind of took her under my wing. Was that the same thing with you and Lindsay?
Yeah, it was pretty much, she was working 9 to 5 full time, and I was a wedding photographer already. I think I'm 15-ish years into this now. So it was if you want to hang out, I do this every weekend. And if you work 9 to 5, we're not going to see each other a whole lot, maybe evenings. But it was okay, sure, I'll come out to a wedding. And then I pretty much, it was a wedding that the first few didn't have a second hired. And I was here's a Nikon D700 from a bunch of years ago.
Yeah,
and
that's what
a
I
few
had.
millimeter lens. Yeah, that's all you need. And still today, it's down here somewhere.
Yeah.
I guess
Always
for
gonna have that bad
YouTube
boy.
viewers, you can see it, but for
Yes.
That's
for
the
audio
piece.
viewers, I'm holding a D700 with a battery grip because this camera is so broken that it needs a battery grip because the door, it doesn't
Close.
the battery doesn't function when in the camera any longer. This has almost 3 million shutter clicks as well. Original shutter, and it's over 1 million. So I think that Nikon, hopefully they'll send me a blue ribbon or something. It's also hot glued together. It's it's a mess of a camera, but to just put a 50 on it and to go out, and as long as you have good light, if you're shooting in darkness, it doesn't really stand up as much anymore, but if you're outdoors in like decent lighting conditions or you have control over lighting, it's like it's still a great camera, and it's
Heck yeah.
like over 10 years old now, and I would be happy to shoot this if I was doing photo only coverage, I think.
Man, I am so glad that you started off with the D700 conversation here because, dude, we are like, I'm obsessed with the D700. I actually made a video on it, and it's like the skin tones that I get out of that are just like no other. So we actually still bring it to weddings, and I'll break it out for portrait sessions or like family formals sometimes.
Yeah.
Just because it's so beautiful. I mean, I can't get the colors out of anything else that I have on that D700. So it's funny that you brought that up.
Even like I did the 85 on it with the flower girl, and that still, I don't even care. That is my most, it's
one of your best shots.
One of my best shots, and it was my very first wedding with it, and it had the battery pack, and I was like, I got this, though I had no idea what was going to happen. And I was
and
like,
she's 4'11" too.
Yeah,
she could like barely lift the thing.
Yeah. But it was great. I think it also gave me carpal tunnel.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, it'll do that.
True that.
Yeah, it's very good.
So, Taylor, I wanted to ask you something. Basically, I mean, we know how busy of a guy you are. You're still, one of the things we love about you is you're kind of like us. Like, you're doing YouTube, you're putting out content, but you're still running a full-time wedding business.
Yeah.
And we love talking to people like that because, like, you know, a lot of content providers, they kind of pick a niche, but they're not actually working in it. And, you know, they're more like actual enthusiasts, but you're an actual professional. So we know how much work it takes. How the hell are you handling all the weddings plus all the content you're putting out? You do YouTube full time, you do photography education, you do a podcast. Like, how are you managing it? Are you managing it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like always a work in progress. It's like, I feel like there's no, if somebody says they've like have the work-life balance figured out, they're lying to you or trying to sell you something. Usually it's the later of the two. And yeah, it's like just kind of like learn every week. So I'm, as I said earlier, I'm like 15 years into being a wedding photographer. So I kind of have that pretty dialed when it comes to just the efficiency behind the scenes. I outsource everything. I do hybrid coverage on wedding days as well. So I do like both photo and a highlight film when I go to a wedding. Typically, I would say probably 75% of the time these days. And I have a photo editor that does everything, and I have a video editor that does everything. So I get home from the wedding, I back everything up. That's like the one task that I will never give to anyone, that I'm never going to just like drop my cameras and be like, all right, back up the card.
Yeah, I trust you.
Yeah. I have too much. I don't know. Like that's like the thing that like, if it fails, that's all on you. So I know end of the day, it's all on me, but I can also rely on people to help out. And then as far as YouTube stuff goes, we film, usually it's kind of, I guess in at least the Northern Hemisphere here, our summer is kind of like, I would say, or at least wedding season for us up here is, I would say, May to like the end of October. And there's obviously outliers, people get married in the winter, but I would say that the core, I do pretty much almost 70 weddings a year. And I would say that like 62 of them out of 70 would be between May and October. So we kind of have like the reverse teacher model where we get the winters off rather than summers. Exactly. And so we travel and we do YouTube content, and we do, we create everything, and then we create so much that we can't possibly edit and release it all over the winter. So I have stuff on like Monday, Tuesday when I sit down to like edit and go through, and we try to make everything pretty evergreen. So it's not like, if there's like a camera review or something, like obviously we're going to get that turned around pretty quickly. But for the most part, if it's like, hey, like here's how you like compose a proper like cityscape photo, or here's how you do like how you get great portrait lighting just based on like location and finding like natural bounces. That stuff kind of lasts forever, and it's kind of nice to go back like 6 months after you shot and be like, oh, this is like really good. Like, I'm excited to release this now, even though I completely forgot about it. So that's kind of my life.
Yeah. I love like, and you're also doing music videos, so that's cool.
She wants.
Can I be in one?
Sarah wants to be in a music video.
Sure,
I don't know what we're
filming, but we'll figure something out. I'll let
Boston.
you know next time we film very efficiently, so we do like 5 music videos in like 3 days. So I'll let you know next time though.
Yeah. Are you do you ever come to Boston? Like, do you ever do weddings here?
It's been a long time since I've been to Boston, actually. I'm in New York a bit, and then my friend Michael owns a company that's actually maybe relevant to your audience. They're called Vidyard, and they're a company that I use like behind the scenes for whenever people inquire with me. If I want to send them a custom like video message, it basically Vidyard. I forget what the actual thing is called. It'll be on their website, but it embeds in your Gmail account, and it'll just record a video straight from your webcam, and you can be like, hey, like here's the answers to all your questions, and you can actually talk with them rather than just being like the behind the scenes person that's like, here's the answers to all your questions. It might be copy and pasted. When you actually, essentially what you're doing is you're doing a full consult with them, but without kind of their participation, which is super weird, but it seems to be effective. And it's a way to step up, I think, your business responses for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I could see how that make things like way more efficient.
Yeah.
Anyways, they have an office in Boston now. It's called Beanyard, which is kind of funny.
Beanyard. I like it already.
They don't know how to separate all the offices, so it's called Beanyard, and then I think they have Vineyard in Vancouver, and then their home base is Kitchener here. But it's a cool little tool that kind of helps me, and seems to make people more real life. That I feel like if you're competing against everyone else in your city, that if you can be the one person that sends somebody a custom video message, like regardless of where you live, that stands out. Like no one is doing that.
Heck yeah, they'll remember you. That's a really good idea.
That's
actually
so cool. And it would be pronounced Bean Yad.
Okay. I'll let him know.
Get it right, Taylor. Come on.
There's an accent on the A.
So okay. So I see how you're managing that. You're starting to build up a team. It brings me to kind of one of my next points is Sarah and I were at the point where we're trying to release the editing and outsource everything. Yes, we've tried out a few different editors, and we know that that's kind of like the way that we should go. We've been in this for a while though. When do you suggest that people, like the new guys, well, first of all, I got a lot of new people that are following the channel, the people that want to get into wedding photography. Like, when do you suggest that they start actually like looking for a team or looking for an editor? And is it something that you should train somebody how you do it, or just try and find somebody like one of the companies online that do it?
Yeah, so there's, I would say, like 3 different ways to do it. The easiest and most efficient, if you can find somebody locally that you can physically meet up with and give them a hard drive, and you can train them and be like, here's my preset, here's what to do, here's like a 30-minute video of me editing these photos for you to see exactly what I do in certain situations. That is like the best of the best. The problem I found with that is that editing photos just isn't fun for anyone, and especially if they're not your own photos, it's even harder. And if you're not contractually obligated to deliver, it's like it becomes very challenging. So I found that my burnout rate on an editor was maybe like 6 to 8 months.
Wow.
And it was just kind of like annoying to have to retrain somebody from zero, especially if they dropped out in high volume in like the middle of August or September or whatever. That was very stressful. So I went to, I feel like I've tried most of the companies that specifically market towards wedding photographers. The best one that I found is actually the company that my wife Lindsay uses. It's Photographers Edit. They will take your preset and they will just make it like exactly as you would have edited those photos. I personally use a company called Evolve. It's Sal Sincata's company, and I asked them for just a straight up boring vanilla kind of normal edit, and then I add my preset based on, I guess, how it comes back. That sometimes like the entire gallery, it's usually either a little bit too overexposed or a little bit less, or a little bit too warm or a little bit too cool. But it's like that across the board. It's a global adjustment. So I just go to Lightroom and I just like fix whatever wasn't really happening, or I make a preset to kind of override and make it look exactly as I would. So that's my strategy. Lindsay just literally gets back like a gallery full of JPEGs that are like ready to go. Which is awesome. Nice. But it costs Photographers Edit is a little bit more expensive per gallery.
But they're doing a lot of the work.
But it's a totally finished gallery.
Now, do they cull for her also?
They don't. Evolve culls for me, and I would say I would typically at a wedding I would shoot maybe 3,000, 4,000 images. And if you're on a monthly, so the way that a few of the companies actually go is that you can do like just an all-inclusive subscription. So it's like whatever wedding images you send to them within reason. I feel like Evolve caps off at like 900 images per wedding. So you can send them 4,000 images, they'll call it down to 900 and they'll edit those 900. And I think if you sign up now, it's like $199 to sign up to that. And if you shoot high volume, it's like 100% worth it.
Yeah, because we do.
Yeah. And then
sure.
Editing is, culling is, I would say maybe I spend an additional like $130 per gallery on that. But that's like totally like I'm buying my life back. I can now.
Well, that's what I mean.
live,
And
right?
that's part of the reason why I asked the question. Cause I know like when you first get into weddings, it's like, holy shit, like I can actually do this. Even if you're a decent photographer, people start getting back to you, especially if your prices are reasonable. And the new guys, I want them to understand that like, okay, getting the business is one thing, shooting the wedding is another thing, but then dealing with all the editing and handling all the images is a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think building some type of like pipeline about how you're going to deal with all these images is smart to think about from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we like have used a company before that
Image Salon.
Yeah, Image Salon. That I mean, the thing is Will and I like to edit. Like we like to take our favorite photos that we knew that we were shooting like behind the camera. Like, okay, these are the photos we're gonna edit. We look through them. It's about 30 of them, and
Portfolio shots.
Yeah, portfolio shots that we love that we edit. But then we were sending them over, and it just the same thing. It wasn't consistent. Like they were not keeping up with what we had asked, and I mean, they were great in the beginning, and then it's like, which is why I like the idea of like
training somebody. I love
that.
that. Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
But I'd like to look into these too.
Yeah, I've noticed specifically now that I've used, I feel like I have, maybe I'll do a check of this later, but I feel like I've used most of the major companies now. The way that it usually goes is that onboarding, you're with like their A-list editor that's paying a lot of attention. And then I feel like as soon as you get past your 3-month trial, it's just like, like quality kind of goes off. And that's what I've experienced throughout all of the companies. So if you can find somebody that like locally will edit for you that can come pick up that drive, that is like by far the best possible scenario. And it's also, I feel like usually in that circumstance, you would be paying somebody hourly, and that entices you to actually shoot better in camera as well and to get things right, so that you can speed up their life, so that they hate you less for like correcting white balances or like shooting in weird lighting conditions on auto white balance. That if you can just make them do those global corrections, they're going to charge you less money and they're going to be happier overall. Which I think is a good positive challenge for all photographers.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's funny, like, it's funny you say that because it is true. It does come down to like finding somebody to be motivated for it. You know what I mean? If they're going to be on your team, they're going to like have to have almost the same motivation as you. You know what I mean?
Well, the thing with like the shooting right the first time, like, okay, so the other day we were at a wedding and I was like, I got a first dance shot, so to say. And I was like, yes, this was it. I don't even have to shoot anymore, pretty much ever again. This is awesome.
All set for the rest of the dance.
Yeah, and then I'm kind of there, and I'm like, shit, like I gotta shoot.
But then there's a better shot. I know that there is.
Yeah, like, and people are looking at me. I'm standing here all awkward. I'm kind of like, I can be awkward at times, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so weird. Like I don't know what to do. So then I'm like, sometimes I'm like, should I pretend I'm shooting? You know, like I don't know.
But we're thinking about it now because it's like, okay, every single time we press the shutter, it's like, 3 shots go off, and there's 3 more we have to color edit. So
exactly.
Like,
or like that's 3 cents.
Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, you think like us.
Yeah, a lot less expensive than film days when it was like $1. Maybe not if you're shooting medium format, maybe, but that it was a lot more expensive every time you hit that shutter.
Heck yeah, man.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk about you and the how you mingle the online presence in your regular business. So like, I mean, this is something that Sarah and I are thinking about right now. Like, we're starting to get a lot of exposure. There's a lot of people going to our website, things like that. How comfortable were you, like, kind of mingling it with all the online people and all the, different personalities out there with your actual business? I mean, did you kind of create the content just to drive the wedding business, or was it more just to create like a general brand?
I don't know. It's like, it's kind of just a weird mix of, I never really plan to do anything. It's kind of as things happen, I can either identify it or I can adjust and at least like fix whatever might not be working. But for the most part, like I was a photographer first. I wrote a book called New School Wedding Photographer. Don't buy it because it's super old now. In like 2008, 2009. So around that time, I realized that I did one, like by writing that book, I feel like I understood my photography process a lot better. So by writing the book and writing my thoughts down, I made myself a better photographer, which I think is kind of interesting. So
Yeah.
Really cool.
if you're out there and you're like, oh, like I should write a book about like wedding photography, or at least like start a blog or something, by beginning to teach anything, you just have so much more of an understanding of it. And I feel like that was very apparent. I tried YouTube for a little bit and I failed over and over again, and I just couldn't make videos that seemed to connect with anybody. And I'm pretty scattered across the board, and I really didn't stay in my lane at all. And I just built a bunch of stuff. And I joined YouTube and I started making videos in 2007, and until I would say like 2008, I was pretty much at like 30,000 subscribers. I would say that over those 10 years, 11 years, I built up that much of kind of an audience. And then within like the past 2 years, I actually like focused on like, hey, like here are actual like tactical things that can help people. And
Totally.
that seemed to do a lot better, at least as far as discovery goes. And it's helped me like, as far as just like understanding things and putting myself out there to experience new and interesting situations that I wouldn't have found myself in, as far as like even just like setting up shoots. Like when I used to travel, it would be like, oh, like I'll do some travel photos. And now I'm like, no, like one, I want to come back with portfolio. And two, if I can make a video about this, like it's going to help a lot of people, and it's going to be really awesome. So now I'm a lot more, I guess, invested in traveling even more with a purpose, and coming back with more pieces for portfolio and for video content and for future content that I don't even know, because we're just kind of banking all this stuff that at some point it'll probably culminate into something, but we have no idea what that is yet. So
yeah.
I love that.
I love it. And I love the crew of people that like are in your group of people. I love them all. I follow them.
Everyone's laid back and
yeah, and
good
they're
sense
cool,
of humor, it seems
and
like.
they're fun, and they're really like, I love that. I love that you're all making content together.
So do you feel like, I mean, so since this is kind of like started blowing up for you, do you feel like a more of a sense of satisfaction with the educational stuff rather than actual shooting the weddings?
Yeah, it's I would say it's a balance. So I think some weeks go that I think it does actually push me to do more on a wedding day, when I'm being held accountable by like a YouTube account that people actually like. They want to see new things, they want to see off-camera flash, and you're not lazy. Like I feel like I'm not a lazy photographer anymore. That again, like if I've been doing this for 15 years, like there are years that maybe like kind of go in and out, that I'm super excited, like super passionate to go into like May, June, July, and then like August, I'm kind of like kind of waiting for winter. I feel like the past like 3 years that I've been creating content, the past like 2 years specifically, I've gone into every wedding specifically with the idea to like, one, do an awesome job for my couple, and then two, also come up, like do something a little bit different to bring back to like an audience that I can then kind of parlay that and like bring that forward. And if that whatever works, I'll bring that to the next wedding, and that'll become part of like what I do at every wedding now. And so it's definitely pushed me out of my comfort zone a bit. So yeah, it's been a good couple of years, I think, and it's definitely like kind of reinvigorated me to go out and keep kind of doing the same thing, because I feel like there's a tendency to just feel like you're kind of stuck in Groundhog Day when you're a wedding photographer.
First dance, cake cutting. Yeah,
you got to keep things fresh for sure. And that's why with Will and I, like with our work, like we're always trying to break out the off-camera flash. We're always trying to, have some fun and get creative with things. And, it's tough because sometimes the bride, like I'll ask the bride, okay, like it's blue hour, like let's go, and she's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, oh,
but you don't understand.
I'm like,
it's blue hour.
Let's go.
Yeah. I
got 5,000 subscribers. I want to see it.
No,
I gotta do this. You know, so
I totally feel that. And above all else, like even though I do create stuff for YouTube, I would say that like my client experience is always like number one. That if anybody has watched any of my videos, it's like I would say on average my photo session with the bride and groom, or groom and groom, or bride and bride, is usually like 10 to 15 minutes. Like it's super short. Like I want to get them back to cocktail hour. I want like, I don't want them to get married to have a photo shoot. I want them to get married to actually get married and like enjoy the day with their family and friends. So I make it as short as possible. But then I also try to really get as much YouTube content of that as possible. If it happens to work out, and if it doesn't, then whatever. Like nobody, like watching really understands it. Like, oh, like you could have done this, or you could have done this, you could have done this. It's like, yeah, we could have, but also like it's their wedding day, so like,
right.
let them live their lives. Like,
yeah, and they spent a lot of money.
Yeah, totally.
So it's like,
totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we're big on that too. We want the client experience with us to be like, you know, the best, because 99% of our business comes from word of mouth anyways. And it comes from, I mean, the photos are one thing, but the experience of working with us really is the thing that's going to make them like, so we just booked a wedding for 2020, and the bride found us. She lives in Maine. And one of our brides, who's from Massachusetts, went up there to, you know, a vacation over the summer. And she was just a random waitress. They went into a restaurant.
She was showing her pictures.
She said, hey, I'm getting married. And then they pulled out the phones and they're like, you have to use these people.
Wow. That's so random. Really cool. It's so good.
It's so random and so good. And this girl didn't even consider anybody else. And, and she loved our photos, but it was like they raved about the people you were and the way that you made them feel. So it's like, you got to balance that YouTube, because you know, Sarah and I, we you know, we're doing the GoPro thing, and a lot of our subscribers have been asking for behind the scenes stuff, but you gotta, you just can't do it on every single wedding. You kind of got to be careful, because some couples want extra attention, and you can't really let the YouTube has to be secondary to the actual wedding. Well,
I also feel like with that is like, when you get back and you have to edit all these photos too, and then you're like, oh, and we're doing YouTube and we're doing, you know, everything. So we're kind of like, all right, well, what's really important? Like, we know everyone's loving the podcast. We know everyone's loving the YouTube channel that Will is, you know, doing the stuff that he's teaching. So, you know, I always have the GoPro on. Like, sometimes I even forget to shut it off. So that's why I'm like, shit.
And I forget to turn it on.
Yeah, and I have it going. It's on forever. And I'm like, well.
It's funny.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So. Yeah. All right. So one other thing that I was wicked excited to ask you about is I see that you are a Z6 man now.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yes. So I was excited to see you using that, because Sarah and I, we use Z6s, like, you know, we both have 2 of them on us, and like, we just absolutely love the mirrorless body. Like, so what do you think about the future of cameras? Like, are you going to start to move into mirrorless once they kind of come out with like a, I don't know, maybe like a higher end Nikon mirrorless, or do you think DSLRs are going to be around for a while?
No, I think I'll definitely get a D6 when it comes out, because I feel like the way that at least like Nikon kind of innovates, or at least the way that they have in the past, is that like the flagship will come out and then that'll get pushed into, I guess, like recently, like the D850. So it goes from like the D5, they make that, they put all their good tech into that. And then the D850 comes out and it does all of that in a smaller body with hopefully a flip screen.
Yes.
So I feel like I'll probably do a D6, because I feel like that'll be out before the whatever the next Z9. Z10 or whatever might be down the pipe. So I feel like I'll probably do that first, but I'm also not tied to that. Like if their mirrorless division, kind of like how Sony just like the A7R team just lapped the A7S team, and put out like a 3 and then a 4 before the S even came out. S3 even came out, really. So yeah, I don't know what's gonna happen as far as Nikon goes, but I'm happy. Like, I love, like, number one, I love the colors that come out of those cameras, naturally. For sure. Specifically for video, because for photos, like, you can make profiles, you can make changes that if you don't like the way that Sony renders like magenta, you can just fix it like default, that it just no longer looks like that. But for video, when you load it in, I just want it to be like pretty much done. Like, I want whatever profile I'm shooting in, I want that to be like the way that I edit to. And I think Nikon does an amazing job with that. And with the new, like the 85S and the 24S that's coming out in a couple weeks now, I guess, sort of timestamp this. But yeah, I'm like super excited to use that. And I feel like when we're filming pretty much all of January this year and maybe even a little bit of October. And I feel like that, like, the Z6 as well as like the 24 1.8S is going to be like that, the film kit that we've always wanted, in the smallest little like kind of package. So if you're like, one, if you want to go shoot weddings with it, like, you put an 85 on it and you're like good to go. And then 2, if you like want to shoot literally any travel content, put like a 35 or a 24 on it, and it's like equally as ready to go really in any circumstance. So it's a really cool line. I really like the colors. I really like everything about it. And the ergonomics, it's just like, they know how to build a physical device, which I think a lot of other camera companies maybe aren't quite there yet with.
I totally agree with that because Nikon, as soon as I shot with D850 and a D810 as my backup before the Z6, and it was funny because Sarah was on the D700 for so long, and as soon as the Z6 came out, I was like, all right, honey, I was like, we got a camera for you now, babe.
Yeah.
That is
So
a
we
whole
went-
new world.
Yeah, exactly. Should have seen it. She had like a huge like muscle on her arm from lifting the thing.
Yeah.
And so I was
still have
like,
huge
all right.
muscles.
So we went to the camera
There's
store and we were the first people to buy the Z6.
Yeah.
We went and bought it for her, and
Yeah.
then we brought it home. We took it out of the box, and then 5 minutes later, we were in the truck going back to buy one for me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it just feels so unbelievable in your hand, and
Yeah.
Nikon like really nailed it. I feel like with the user experience of it. So
Yeah.
we absolutely love the thing.
Well, and a
Yeah.
lot of times, like when we look at our photos to edit them, we're like, wow, like we don't even really have to do anything.
the JPEG's
because the
better.
colors.
Yeah, JPEGs are
JPEG's there.
unbelievable.
Like, that's what you want.
Oh, I'm like, really? I did that? Like,
Yeah.
okay.
No, I mean, it's funny because there's still this whole, I feel like there's this DSLR crowd that like, and DSLRs are obviously still great cameras, but what I'm saying is they like,
Yeah.
there's like this old school crowd that thinks that like you need like battery grips and like big cameras in order to be like a
ton
pro.
of gear. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and we're the opposite of that. Like when we go to a wedding, we want to be like so insignificant and
Yeah.
like so incognito. We
Yeah.
want to be like
I'm like, please don't look at me.
Yeah.
Please don't.
and,
Don't
and,
look
that-
at
and
me.
I don't understand why like you wouldn't want to be.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
35, 85 girl.
Yeah.
It's my two favorites.
Yeah.
Well, that's another question you had for Taylor.
Yeah, that was my question because I've listened obviously to everything and I've heard you say like that. I'm kind of the same way. I don't really want to have to get up close and personal. Like I wish that like I like having the 85 so I can kind of step back but still be up close. And I mean, I was just wondering like what are your like two favorite lenses if you could use only two?
I would say my favorite lens is I guess like not to make this like a Nikon shout out podcast, but I feel like one thing they really do well is that everyone else has missed, with the exception of like a few outlier lenses of different brands, and Leica for sure also kind of abides by this, is that they build lenses also with art in mind.
Yeah.
They're just not building for like that, like the perfect sharpness and like edge to edge, like whatever. They build things. Actually, I have a book here. I'll reference this book for
Yes.
video viewers.
Eyes
Eyes
of
of
Nikon.
Nikon.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's like some random piece of collateral that they gave to like all the camera. We have a local camera shop here still, which is amazing. We're a small city, and somehow they've survived, and I'm doing
We
everything
do
I can
too.
to help them.
Mm.
It's so nice to be able to just like go into a physical
Yep.
store.
Hey,
Yep.
yeah, definitely.
So they gave them that book, and I was looking through it, and there's a bunch of photos in that book that would not be considered like images that really any other camera brand would lead with. There are like things that are like just soft and out of focus intentionally, like to
Love it.
create a feeling. And I don't think that really anyone else would, I don't know, like lead with that. It's like, hey, here's like an example of what our 105 1.4 looks like. And it's like an out of focus rain image with like motion blur. And it
Totally.
Yeah.
everything just looks so nice. So they definitely design with art in mind, rather than just sharpness and like overall technical ability.
Yes.
So because of that, there's a big tangent to get into this.
I love it.
I really love the 85 1.4 G. I love all the G primes for Nikon, but the 85
You shoot with.
G is
Yep.
like, I would say my favorite lens, that it just
Me
makes
too.
like, I don't know, you just shoot random scenes and it's like, wow, that looks better than real life, but not in like
Yeah.
a way that, I don't know, like lies about the scene. It's just like, wow, like that, the JPEG that I see is edited to beyond what I could have ever expected to come out of that.
Mm.
scene.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, the color science. I totally agree with you there. It's sort of like back in the day, film, like all these different film stocks were created by like people in the lab, artists in the lab
Yeah.
that were actually kind of, they were looking for ways to represent color and skin tones in beautiful ways. So it wasn't just like a scientist making a sensor that's actually just trying to represent everything perfectly. It was actually somebody who's out there like, okay, what, you could use like Fuji color for like really beautiful like tree color and leaves and like foliage, and then Porta for like beautiful skin tones. They were actually making like a person's representation of it, which I thought, I mean, I think you can really still find that. And yeah, I don't want to get off on celebrating Nikon, but yeah, it's, I really appreciate companies that do that stuff because, then it kind of like adds something different and like everybody can kind of like, kind of start off with a signature style or color or something like that and then develop it on their own.
Yeah. And it's been crazy interesting to see, specifically like the early reviews on the Z6 or Z6, I guess. And like Z7 were not good. Like everybody kind of crapped on that camera. And originally, like when I had a pre-production version of it and I locked it up 3 times within like 10 minutes. And I'm like, I don't think it's ready for market yet.
Yeah.
But then the actual released version. So I don't know if everyone else got that pre-production version to review from, but
it was strange. It was very strange. As soon as we held it in our hands and we started shooting, I mean, we've already put probably through our 4 Z6s, we probably put close to 200,000 images through it so far this year, and we've never had any problems with it. But so one thing I wanted to touch on that Sarah and I were talking about before is your 2 prime combo. Are you still kind of using that for most of the weddings and then just throwing in the 70-200, on ceremonies? Because that's how we do things. We do a 2 prime combo. I'm usually on the 24 and the 50, and then she's usually on the 35 and the 85.
Yeah, that's my life. So if I'm shooting photo only coverage, I'm that 85G, and if I'm solo, I'll be my other body will be on a 24 just in case I have to do a group shot with like 150 people out of nowhere. But if I'm with somebody else that I know has a 24-70 on one of their bodies, usually it'll be on a 35, so the 35 1.4G. And then if I'm doing hybrid photo video coverage, I use the Tamron Prime. So the Tamron 85 1.8 VC and the 35 VC as well. And I'm super happy with both of those. I feel that I technically do a better job if I'm able to use the Nikon Primes, but I feel like overall, as a photo video shooter, that when people see the video, that any maybe little blips in quality that could have been a little bit better, even though they would never potentially know that. I feel like all of those are erased by the fact that we made like this amazing highlight film that really is like just encapsulates the entire day into like 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it is.
I love that.
So I feel like that is that's the trade-off. At least for now. I don't know if Nikon has I guess they do. If you're shooting the Z6, they have an 85 prime already. So
I had it on order, and I just got a notification it's shipping out. I'll have it in 2 weeks, so I cannot freaking wait. It's like, so the 2 prime combo. One thing we love about it is I actually saw a video of yours, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, where you're talking about this, and it was like, man, I was like, this is exactly how I think about this. Like, when you have a 24-70 and you're going through a bunch of different focal ranges, when you're looking through the book or you're looking through the final images, it does kind of, it makes a story that's kind of choppy and not like kind of in a linear fashion. It's so much better, I feel like, when you're looking through your images and we have like a wide shot, and then a close up, and then a wide shot and a close up. And when you only have 2 focal ranges or focal lengths, I feel like it helps you focus on the moments and what's going on way more because you're thinking about how to frame everything.
Well, it's so true, because if you're trying to get too technical, you're not thinking, you're thinking about that rather than thinking about what's happening in front of you and like what's going on in the moments, and those are fleeting. So I mean, you don't want to. I mean, I know when I used to do the 70-200, and that thing's also a beat. I'm like shaking.
On the 70, that's why you
on the D700.
On the D700, I'm shaking to death. Like, I'm trying to stabilize my arm, and I couldn't really do anything. So I'm like, you know what? F this thing. I'm done. Like, I'm going with the 85 and 35. I'm over this. Like, I can't.
Well, I feel like the clients, when they get back their final images, they appreciate that so much more. Like, seeing a story. Like, I mean.
Well, I know from our wedding photos. So Will and I was going to ask you too a question about this, but Will and I got married in Colorado, and we had 15 people, very small. Our focus was our photos, and we had our Steve Stanton, who is an incredible photographer. Shout
out Steve.
Shout out to Steve. Seriously, we got to get Steve on the podcast, but he's amazing. And when I was going through all of our photos, because he used the Fuji, did he use Fuji?
Yeah, he was on a GFX 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he, I think, was only using the 2 lenses too. He
Yep,
was
he had
using
2 lenses on the whole.
They're like $11,000 each. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
He showed up with that GFX. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
man.
he's amazing. But looking through the photos of our day, it really does. It's
It was
so
consistent.
right. Very consistent. Told a story. It was very beautiful. So I was wondering how you met Lindsay. And I know that you got married in Mexico, which is really awesome.
Sweet.
And who your photographer was.
Yeah. So I guess the photographers, so we had 2 photographers. We had 2 weddings. To get married legally in Mexico is a bit weird. And I believe that you have to give blood if you're an outsider, which is very strange. So we're like,
Wow.
we're not really down with that. So we'll get married here and then we'll take the trip.
They're like, it's your sister?
I guess I should actually look up what the reason is, because I've come up with a lot of like reasons it could be, but I figured that was one of them.
Scary.
Yeah,
I don't know.
sketchy.
So yeah, we had 2 weddings. Up here we had a dude named Sam Hurd. He is closer to you
he's
guys.
great.
He's in
Yes.
DC.
I am the Sam, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who's like
Yeah.
phenomenal. He also shoots. I think he shot our wedding. I think he was 24 and a 58
Cool.
all day. And to this day, including my work, it is the strongest gallery. We had him for like, I think 4 hours, because it was just like a local, like really fast, like, hey, we're going to go here. We're going to like get married. Like,
Love
here's
it.
all our family. And then we're going to go somewhere for photos real quick. And then we're going to have tacos. We got married on a Tuesday at like 2 p.m. and we were done by like 6. There was like no party. It was like literal Taco Tuesday.
I love
This
that.
is the best wedding ever.
Ever.
Yeah, which was so Lindsay's dad, to tangent just briefly. Lindsay's dad was like, "Oh yeah, like we'll cover this, like the legal Canadian wedding. Like don't worry about like payment. Like we'll get it." And then he got the bill, and I think it was like $204 or something. He's like, "Wow!" Like
He's like, yeah, it's all
okay.
set.
Yeah,
It's all
no
set.
problem. Yeah. So yeah, Sam shot like an incredible gallery from the day, and like every image, again, like it has a purpose. It's either a wide or it's closer, and I feel like that was something that kind of reaffirmed that thought process to me, that by seeing yourselves in photos, I feel like it changes kind of everything. As far as like, I wish that that we would have had like an engagement session like way so long ago, because we waited until maybe a year before the wedding, and just by doing that process, you learn so much, and to be in the client's perspective and be like, okay, like this is awkward. Like when our faces are this close together, we can't actually like focus. And yeah. So there's like, it just made my life as a photographer so much easier, I think. After going through that process.
For sure.
Heck yeah, man. It's funny you say that.
We just did our family photos like with somebody,
Sergey Lebkovsky.
Levkowski. Yeah, he's awesome too.
Yeah.
So he did our photos, and it was great, but it's so funny being like
behind the camera or not or in front of the camera. We're like, what the hell?
and hearing him say go forehead to forehead. I'm like, oh, it's weird.
Yeah. So
you
yeah, you
had
definitely
another wedding.
Yeah, you find where those boundaries are, I guess, on everything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, then we got married in Mexico, and we brought our friend Beth Kay with us to do that.
Yeah.
And she brought her friend Angie. I forget Angie's last name. I feel like a very bad person right now. But they both came to our wedding in Mexico, and it was just like, it was great. And then also, I think another thing that we did properly that I wish that I could like coach all my couples to do, but I usually, by the time I'm hired, typically like all the timeline is mostly decided. That we kind of chose the timeline based on like also good photos. So we were like, hey, it's gonna be sunset. We don't want to get married at 2 p.m, so we're gonna push back against the resort to like not make us do this. So we're gonna do 4:30 in the afternoon and get good light.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Smart man.
I try to tell my couple, like our couples, like think about your photos, have your photos in mind, you know, when you're planning, if you haven't planned your timeline yet, or if you can go back and tell the coordinator, hey, like this is what I want to do, or have your coordinator contact me, you know.
She doesn't mess around.
So I don't and because the photos are important. I mean, a lot of our couples come to us and they're saying we chose you because of your photos. And I tell them, well, the photos that you're seeing, those take time. Like some of the real creative ones, those we need some time for those. So you need to figure out your timeline.
Yeah, do you? That's a good
that.
question. Do you set your couple's expectations like with that stuff? Do you tell them like, I mean, if a bride comes to you and says, "Hey, you know, we really like this stuff," will you tell them, "Okay, well, this is what I need to create that. I need this certain time, and I need to be able to shoot during this hour"?
Not too much, surprisingly. This is the first time I've been asked that, so I appreciate the making me think about something here.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Love it.
No, I don't really ask them too much about that. I definitely tell everybody that I'm going to take them out over sunset for like golden hour, because that's kind of the fish in the barrel 20 minutes that it's like, hey, all the best photos from the day are going to be in this 15 minutes. But beyond that, usually it's I find that most of my couples are very strongly that they just want candid photo coverage. I've had more weddings than ever this year that have had no like photo session. So it's like literally, I have a minute to get like a photo of them smiling facing the camera, and then like make them walk that way and make them walk back towards me. And that's the photo session. And then they go to cocktails and they do like one photo with their wedding party or their sisters or whatever it is. I've had a lot of weddings like that this year that really is just like no photo session.
That's really nice.
Yeah, but we've had that too, and it gets stressful. Though. Yeah,
it's I would say it's like the hardest as far as delivering the work that I create, to just be like, hey, you got to create all of the things that you usually do, setting them up, but now you got to do them candid. And it's like, all right, personal challenge.
Yeah. So true. It's so stressful.
It's hard. Yeah. It seems like the dream. It's like, oh, I wish all my clients did that. And then you do it and you're like, wow, this is real hard. Like, I wish that I could have them for 15 minutes to be like, hey, we got to do this. We got to go up on this hill. We got to do whatever. But
we actually had a wedding. We had a wedding recently where we had like an hour to take portraits. And it was like, dude, it was like amazing. It was like, holy shit. We got like 50.
We had so many. We're like, now what do we do?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
So much time, you know.
I was like, I'm not used to this, shit. You know.
But I'm having my problem is right now is the bridal party. My children listen better than the bridal party. And I'm like, I mean, I was a teacher in my past life, and you know, and I'm like, my teacher voice has to come out, and I'm like yelling, and no one's listening. I'm like, not yelling at them, but I'm like, hey guys, okay, like the faster you listen, the faster this is gonna go.
Yeah, you get to go to drinks. It's like drinks and food.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
the drinks are over there.
Yeah. I'm like, let's get this done, and you can go. And like some of our brides too are like, well, I want this photo to be I want my bridal party photos to be really creative. Yeah. And I want this photo and I want that photo. And I'm like, ooh,
like we want that too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's not gonna happen today.
How you manage that stuff? So do you and Lindsay shoot together like pretty much all the time?
We shoot actually the opposite. We both have different businesses.
Both
intentionally, and we'll do like maybe if we pick up a destination wedding to like go and do for friends, we'll do it together. But otherwise, we're usually pretty separate.
That's cool. My question. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that she probably does. I think she has about 50 weddings this year.
Wow, good for her.
And I have like 60 plus as well. So it's like, we're both at weddings every day, but we're just not at. Sometimes it's the same venue, which is really funny, but very rarely together.
I'd love to interview her. I mean, I really would, because I wonder, when did she start getting like into weddings and start doing them? Like,
it was with me. So it was maybe like a year of kind of just doing it because that's how we got to hang out, and you got a nice dinner, and then she realized that she did not want to have like just a 9-to-5 full-time job. She's working at a hydro company, and it was like very male dominated and just corporate, like all old kind of.
My friend works. In that.
Yeah. So she was wasn't having the best time with it.
Yeah.
Right.
It wasn't a dream job.
Yeah. And then she saw kind of like that. It's like, oh, like it's not like it. I feel like there's a stigma kind of, I guess maybe it's going away now, but with the idea of wedding photography, it's like, oh, like you can't be a wedding photographer. That's like the most embarrassing type of photographer to be. But now it's like, it's awesome. So
it is awesome.
It's
I
great.
Let other people believe that if they want, but I don't know if that's like the mindset she came from, but she started doing it and then got really good. And she was like within maybe 4 or 5 weddings, like as good as anyone that I was really hiring. No disrespect to the other people that
Yeah.
I was hiring.
They're like, what the heck, Taylor?
Yeah.
But yeah, she just like, she knew what looked good and she knew how to
She
create
got it.
that
Yeah.
with a 50mm lens. And then it's pretty clear at that point that it's like, okay, like you can do your own thing for sure. And then we just decided that like it would be way smarter, I think, for us because she's a bit younger than I am, and she was basically about to go through the period of life where if you're 23 and you're like getting into wedding photography, all of your friends are about to get married.
Yep.
Yes.
So like that is like the optimal time, I think, and like by far the easiest time to just like be like, I'm a wedding photographer now, and then it's just like, cool, my calendar's booked.
Yeah.
So I knew she was about to go through that. I went through that when I was like younger as well, so it was like
Yep.
it was just all timing, I think, that it made a lot of
man.
sense to do separately.
We're a little older too. We're probably around the same age as you. But we have one younger friend, and we have done like all of her friends' weddings and like family shoots and everything. Like every time we're like, oh, this is your friend.
Once
This
one
is your
gets
friend?"
married,
Yeah.
the same one has to have
Yeah.
the same photographer for
Yeah.
everybody.
That's
so.
how we get a lot of our clients too. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we have to book you guys. You guys are awesome." Like at the wedding, they're like, "We need you." I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah,
when you get
10%
married?"
off
She's
if
like,
you book today. Like,
yeah.
send me the
She's like, "I'm not
contract and-
engaged yet." But I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, do you have a boyfriend? No. I'm like, all right.
I'll
So-
make a bit. Yeah,
Gotta do
add
that
me to
first.
Instagram and let me know.
Yeah. So how did you, my other question, like, so you now do a lot of like, I see you traveling a lot for weddings and stuff now. How, like, are those, do you do them for your friends? Or are they like clients that found you like on your website or via social media?
It is a combination of kind of everything. That when I'm traveling, if I am somewhere and if I'm somewhere for any reason whatsoever, if it's a major city, I'm going to do everything I can to set up a shoot. And even if that shoot costs me like $200 to pay a couple to like show up and not flake, I'm 100% down for that. Like that, if I can come
Nice.
back with like, and also when you pay people, you can make them wake up at 6 a.m. to like get to the photo locations
Yeah, you
that are
can.
just, like dominated by thousands of people by like 9 a.m. So if you're like, hey, like here's the deal, like I'll give you money, but also you got to wake up super early. And I found that it actually works out really well with the people that I've just randomly come in contact with because they'll all have jobs to get to, but their jobs don't start until 9. And they're like, hey, like if we're gonna start at like 7 a.m., like I can actually do that before I go to work and I can make money before I go to work. So
Sweet.
a few of my
Heck
shoots
yeah.
are kind of that way. A lot of them are kind of paid commissions as well. So how that works out is all just kind of random and different every single time. But it's it's always different. But I want to create stuff when I go out somewhere. So
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart,
Yeah.
and it's helpful too. You know,
Yeah, I want to get into more of the traveling weddings. I love that. Traveling
Destination,
out of
totally.
destination stuff.
So
for sure.
one thing that I wanted to leave you with, I know you're super busy, Taylor. So like, I wanted to kind of give like I said, there's a lot of new like wedding photographers, people getting into it that are following the channel. What do you think is the best way for somebody who's just getting into this to kind of get through that like $300 wedding hump, like, and actually start charging like something that's, could be like, worth their time to do it?
Yeah.
yeah, I would say go out, just start building your portfolio. That if you have a few dollars to invest rather than just buying new lenses, new gear, if you can spend that money and set up the portfolio shoots that you want to exist in your portfolio,
Yes.
that those are going to come back tenfold rather than just like trying to like get those like low price bookings. That if you can set up a portfolio that looks like you're a $5,000 a day photographer, and then you charge like $2,000, people are going to be pretty excited, or they're going to be super nervous because they're like, why don't you charge as much as you should? But if you can kind of coach them through that process and be like, yeah, I am new, but also like you've seen my work and it's good. I feel like that's what, like, if I could go back and do anything different, I just would have set up everything that I wanted my portfolio to look like in the very beginning, because it's such a struggle to try to get your portfolio organically. Because in the beginning, you're not going to be shooting weddings that look like they're necessarily going to be in like a wedding blog or anything like that. And you can do a great job of them, but at the end of the day, like if the details just like don't align with what a bride or groom sees their day looking like, they're probably not going to hire you. They're probably not going to contact you.
Totally.
But if you can connect with the people and put the money down to make a shoot that looks like that wedding that you want to be at, It's going to be a much faster kind of ramp up time to get to where you want to be at. And I feel like that's like in any genre of photography, that if you just go out and you start building what you want your portfolio to look like, eventually you're going to start getting hired for that work.
Yep.
Man, that is such good advice. And that's what we did too. Like, and I hope the new people are really listening to that. Don't just settle for, like, obviously you're going to book what you can book in the beginning, but don't just settle for that for your portfolio.
Yeah.
Go out there and actively make the shots that you want to take. Contact all your friends that are, the best looking friends you have.
Yeah.
Even just offer them $100 or whatever it takes just to get them in a dress and a suit or whatever, and go do some styled stuff. Create the portfolio, just like you said, that you want to be shooting for. Because you're right, like the first few venues that Sarah and I did, I mean, they were just like,
one of them was
budget.
a church that flooded.
Oh,
so
yes, I was in a. All right, I don't want to go off too far on a tangent, but the first one, the church, it was in a church basement, and the basement flooded, and it was like there was like 400 different types of light bulbs in every socket. It was just it was the worst possible situation. So, you guys, that's what you're going to be faced with in the beginning. So do those because you're learning real weddings, but then go and create the portfolio that you want, and you can get into those higher prices a lot faster.
And I always say, just go in confidently. Like, go in like you know what you're doing. Hey, I'm here. I know what's going on.
Don't freak out and have an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
If you can avoid it.
Because I know when one of my first weddings, I was like, "Ooh, I'm hot. I'm hot."
I'm like, settle down.
I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know if I can do this. But then it was literally, we were talking about that photo is my favorite photo of all time, was from my first wedding.
Still the one.
Yes, still the one.
All right, Mr. Taylor, listen.
I mean, I could go on forever.
I could too. We got to stop ourselves.
I need Lindsay too. Tell Lindsay, please. Love her.
She'll be down for sure.
And so next time you're in Boston, man, we will buy you a Mexican Coke, my brother.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Sounds delicious. Very nutritious as well.
Absolutely. All right, man. Listen, we really appreciate the time, and thank you very much.
I know. Thanks so much. I know we didn't touch on a few things, so we're going to have to get you on because I'm also wondering about that food show you got going on.
Oh, yeah. That looks interesting.
I know.
Yeah, we'll touch base via email, Taylor, and hopefully we can get you on again, man.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
I know. Thanks so much.
Thank you, buddy.